Alright, welcome back guys. Today we're going to be doing a hopefully quick video about this light right here. This is another light that's made by, I believe it's pronounced Cyansky, I'm not exactly sure. But I've actually reviewed two of their lights already. This will be the third one I've reviewed. And just to be transparent, they've sent all of these lights out. I actually requested this one specifically because I gave the first K3 that I had to Rhett, and he's been using it on patrol for almost a year now. However long I've had that light, he basically got probably about a month afterwards, and he's been using it, and he absolutely loves that light. And I was looking at getting another one that I could use for my job, and I was looking on their website and I noticed, well, they had a new version, and it's brighter, it has better candela, it's just better all around. The body design, I think, is better and improvement. So I was like, well, shoot, I'm going to order that one. But I decided to contact them and see, hey, would y'all be interested in sending one out for review? And they said sure. So they sent one out, and here it is. And I will say just right off the bat, I am absolutely just blown away with how well this thing works. I was really impressed with the first one that they gave, and then the IR version that I reviewed as well, which I don't have because I ended up giving to one of my other friends who I sold my Gen 1 night vision to, because he was just basically saying there's no way he could ever afford Gen 3s, so I went ahead and sold him my Gen 1 since I didn't need them anymore. But with the Gen 1s, you're going to need that, really powerful IR light with that one. So I ended up giving that to him. So long story short, here I am with the version 2, and I've been playing around with this thing for a little while now, and I did record some footage outside, as you can kind of see just how well this does. And also I did compare it to the Olight Warrior Mini 2. I compared it to the, the Streamlight, the Rail Mount HLX, their 1000 lumen rifle light, and then also an EcoTac flashlight that I have that's around 1000 lumens. Now, to be fair, this one is 2,000 lumens, but really what makes this thing shine is the candela. So if you can see it on, let's see, where's it at? I know it's on here somewhere. So intensity, candela. So if you look on here, hopefully you can see that, it'll focus. On the turbo, it's 100 and almost 125,000 candela. If you're not familiar with what candela is basically the intensity of the beam and how much light is basically, focused in that one spot. If you're familiar with, just a regular standard flashlight from, like, say, Walmart or something, generally they aren't going to have very good candela. They're kind of just flood. Or if you have a really cheap flashlight that's, a couple dollars, generally they're just kind of floody. They don't have a really good hotspot. And what that means is it won't carry distance. So it's good for, like, lighting the area around your feet, or inside of a house or something like that. But if you actually want to see off at distance or, defeat photonic barriers or stuff like that, you're going to need higher candela. If you've ever used any of these Surefire lights or, say, mod lights or, any of the high-end lights that usually have really good candela, you'll notice a difference pretty quick between a flashlight that does have that and flashlights that do not, or that don't have as good a candela rating. So when I saw that candela rating, I actually thought that was a typo. It's like, there's no way this thing has that much candela. That's just unheard of. Even the new Surefire, the X300, their pistol-mounted light, but I think it's a turbo. And it's only about 600 or 650 lumens, something like that. But the candela is like 66,000. And I've recently played with Rhett's, and hopefully we'll be using one of those for my job in the near future. But anyways, using that, even with 650 lumens, it just blew away all the other pistol lights that I've used, including the other Surefire, the X300, just the regular one. That's 1,000 lumens. So candela is king, 100%. Lumens does matter to a degree, but candela is more important. So anyways, all that aside, I decided I wanted to review this light, and I'm glad I did, and I will be using this for work. I actually also bought, in case you're wondering, if you're looking for a good kind of belt mount, if you're a cop or security or anything like that, or you just want a good duty belt mount for it, this is made by, I think it's Vega Holsters. I found it on Amazon, VEGA. There's the package up there. I'll put links down below, but this actually works really well with this flashlight. It's just kind of held in with tension. You can kind of see it kind of locks in there, and it holds it pretty secure. I mean, it's not, if you take a tumble down a cliff, it's probably not going to hold it in there, but if you're, wrestling with somebody on the ground, it's probably not going to fall out. It has pretty good retention. So anyways, I've already told you that I like this light quite a bit, and you'll see why when I compare it to the other lights. But as you can also see, it's not all that big. I have pretty small size hands, and I mean it's it's about on par with, you know, most other, you know, belt lights. I would say it's obviously not, you could EDC it, but you'd have to have some decent sized pockets for that. And it does come with, you know, a little belt clip that it comes attached with, which you can see on there. And it comes with a little lanyard, and it also comes with a little extra O-rings, gasket rings, in case the ones that are in here go bad, and a little tail switch right here, you know, this right here. So that's kind of nice that they include that in case it breaks or, you know, falls apart or you lose it or whatever. It's kind of nice that they include that. But size-wise, I would say it's too big for a pocket, but it's pretty much good for anything beyond that. If you have a duty belt or war belt or whatever and you want a white light, it's not too big for that. It works out pretty well. It'll also fit in different, you know, magazine pouches and stuff if you want to throw it in like a pistol mag pouch or something. So let's go over the features. I've already gone over some of them. Obviously, this little button right here, if you can look on here, it's green and it does different things whenever the battery life is going dead. So I don't remember what it is, but you'll have to look it up, but it does do that. The tail cap on here, or the tail switch, I should say, whenever you click it, is going to be super bright. Sorry. Super bright. You can see just how focused and bright that beam is. It's just insane. The tail switch only turns it on and off, which I like. This button right here, I can push it all day long. You can hear me. Nothing happening. That is only a mode button. So whenever I turn it on, try not to blind you this time. Whenever you hit it, it'll go down to the dimmest, and then it'll work its way up. So you have the low, medium, high, and then turbo. I leave it on turbo all the time because why not? It'll go down in lumens, you know, and everything as it wears out a battery, which is normal, and I'll go over that here in a minute. But I like that this button does not turn it on. I really like that because one of the problems I have with Olight, if you're familiar with any of my reviews on them, is their buttons are always, you know, they always stick out of the body, and so they're always getting pressed to the point where they had to do an auto lockout feature where you have to hold down the button for a certain amount of time and then to lock it out where none of the buttons work. And then to turn it back on, you have to hold down the same button for a certain amount of time, and then it will allow you to work, and which I think is stupid. For a work or duty light, you want to be able to just turn on a switch and it's on. You don't want to have to sit there, hold on, person in the dark alleyway, let me hold this down for about 3 seconds before I can see who you are. That's stupid. So that's one of the reasons why I don't like Olight designs. They did come out with one recently that I think got rid of that. And if they did, kudos to them. But Cyansky does a really good job on designing their lights. I don't know who they talk to when it comes to designing their lights, but whoever it is top notch. The distance on here, it says 700 meters max. I mean, I'm sure it would illuminate something at that distance. I have shined it out to about 300 yards, and I could see the tree line and everything, and I could see if someone was there. So realistically, where you can identify somebody and what's in their hand, you're looking at, you know, 100 to maybe 200 yards, something like that. Past that, out to, I would say, probably 400 yards, you could easily identify somebody, but you may not be able to see what's in their hand. Past that, you could probably see that someone's there. You know, if it's completely pitch black, there's no, you know, moonlight or anything, sure. So that might be a little bit, you know, best case scenario, I guess, for this, but practically I would say 400 to 500 yards probably about the most you're getting out of this, which is still, I mean, ridiculously far, which you'll see here in a little bit. Here is it on turbo. You can see up close. That's a decent spot. I don't know how well you can see the wood line from here, but I can see into the woods, and if someone was there, I could see them, and I could probably identify what's in their hand out to about 30 yards maybe. Again, the bezel on this flashlight is pretty small, so this is pretty good output for, you know, what it is. But I just kind of want to give you a comparison. This lights up pretty much my entire backyard to where if anybody's in my backyard or any animals or anything like that, I could see just fine. And here is the difference between Candela. This one has, again, this is going to be, again, right over here is the Olight. Hopefully this camera is actually focusing. Here is the Cyansky. You can see how much brighter of a hotspot that is. I don't know if it comes across on camera or not, but that is just a ridiculously bright hotspot. I can actually see the beam. It kind of like, it looks like a lightsaber just because it's so intense. So again, Olight over here, Cyansky over here. And again, this is 1700 lumens. This is 2000 lumens, but you notice the spill is a little bit less. I'll take away the Olight here. The spill is not as bright. Now I will say, right there at the wall where you can see it ends abruptly. There's absolutely no flood past that larger ring, but it's enough to where I would say it's about the same as the flood on the Olight Warrior Mini. The same, actually it's a little bit brighter. So in all ways, the Cyansky is better. Now granted, again, it's substantially bigger. So let's compare it to something else. So here is a Eagle Tac flashlight, if you're familiar with those. They're roughly $80. This one's either 800 or 1,000 lumens. I don't remember which. It might be a 1,200 lumen model, I don't remember. But let's just go with it's around 1,000 lumens. This is its brightest setting. This is actually my work flashlight. And as you can see, there is a hotspot, but it's not all that great. And you can kind of see the tree line in the background, but I mean, it's not phenomenal. Now, again, the Cyansky is just absolutely phenomenal and blows them out of the water. I think it's actually trying to snow out here. It got freezing, but anyways, so you can kind of see what it looks like. And again, this one is roughly 1,000 lumens, so obviously it's not as bright. The Cyansky just is incredible compared to it. All right, and the last comparison, this is the Streamlight HLX. This will give you a pretty good idea. Over there in the wood line, hopefully you can see it. I can see really probably about 10, maybe 15 yards into the wood line with this, and I could identify somebody out to a little bit further, obviously, than that Olight. This one's only 1,000 lumens compared to, you know, the 1,700 on that Olight, the Warrior Mini 2. But here is the Cyansky next to it. So you can see this one over here, this light over here is no slouch. These are brand new batteries. You can just tell this light is kind of a beast when it comes to throw and Candela for the size. The Cyansky is not that much bigger, and you can just see how much better that hotspot is. So it really, really gives you a good hotspot. Let me turn it over here to where you can see my dog. This will give you a better idea. So again, there's my dog. This is the Streamlight rail mount, the HLX. Again, it's 1,000 lumens, pretty good Candela. This one has decent flood too. I would say this one would be usable to where you could identify what's in someone's hand about 50 yards. This Cyansky, you can see everything way better. Again, the Streamlight, Cyansky. Again, this is the Olight Warrior Mini 2. It's about 1,700 lumens. The farthest I can see, assuming you can actually tell on here, is going to be that tree line right here on the right before it kind of curves around. And that's probably, I don't know, maybe 50 yards. So I can see if somebody was there about 50 yards away. I can only see what's in somebody's hands probably 25 yards away, something like that. It does a good job of illuminating the general area, but it's not a good light for identifying something in their hands. Again, so here is the Cyansky on the left. You see how much more focused that is, and it goes all the way down. And that's 100 yards down there. And I can easily see if there was someone there, and I could probably tell what's in their hands, honestly. This light is just ridiculous. Now you'll notice the flood is not nearly as much. Now you get probably about as much spill for just kind of walking around as you do with the Olight. So that's actually pretty impressive. But compared to the beam itself, you know, it's nothing, but it's enough to navigate with. And then the beam itself is enough to see what someone would be holding in their hands, or, you know, what someone's doing specifically. See, this one does a little bit better than the Olight. You can actually see down at the end. I can see 100 yards away. I could see if somebody was there, probably, as long as they weren't hiding, if they're just standing there at the edge of the wood line, but I could not see what's in their hand. So again, and this light is no slouch when it comes to Candela. It's one of the better ones on the market just because the bezel is so large. It's a pretty large light. So just to give you an idea, and again, here's the Cyansky on the left. So again, you can't really see on camera, at least from what I can tell, you can't see past about 50, but I can see out to about 100 if someone was there, versus this. It's just no contest. I could easily see what was in someone's hand at 100 yards. So just to kind of give you a comparison. Again, Streamlight HLX rail mount on the left, Cyansky, or sorry, on the right, Cyansky on the left. This is the Eagle Tac that I've shown you before. It's around 1,000 lumens. It might be a little bit less, a little bit more. I don't remember. But it's Eagle Tac, and it's one that's you've seen before, that mounts onto a has like a Picatinny rail mount attached to it. But anyway, so this is what that looks like. And again, I can see out to not as far as the Streamlight. I can see out to 100 yards, but it's not as bright. I could barely tell if someone's there. About 75 yards, what I'd say would be about the maximum on this one. And again, on the left, that's the Eagle Tac, and here is the Cyansky. So you can just see how much better it performs. And it's just because it doesn't waste all of that light. It's actually focused on something, which is important. You know, having a whole bunch of flood, I guess, is great whenever you're just kind of walking through the woods. But if you're actually trying to find somebody and identify them, or see what someone's holding in their hands, like if you're a cop or security or, you know, anything along those lines, you really want Candela, because you want to be able to actually visibly see what they're doing as best as possible. Maximum runtime 400, that's on the lowest setting, and you can see on here all the different things it comes with. It does have a strobe for all you that like to party. I personally don't like strobe mode, but it's there and it's hard to actuate. You have to be purposeful, so I like that. Impact resistance, it's waterproof, all the normal things. It does come with a rechargeable battery, which it's a little micro USB, so whenever I'll just show you that now. Get this out of the way. So one thing they also improved about the body is instead of the head doesn't spin off anymore, so it's a more rugged design. But here's the battery, and it's not the micro USB, it's that, I can't remember what it's called, but anyways, it's basically micro USB, but it's a different one. But anyways, it fits right in there, charges it up. It does take it a little while to charge. Obviously, it's a pretty decent sized battery. That's not that big of a deal. But I do like the fact that they got rid of the head unscrews, because it's one less thing to break, so it's a more solid design, at least in my opinion. So here's the runtime, and I did test all this, and I'll kind of go over what I got as results versus what they have on here. So the output on low is 30 lumens, then you have 150, you have high is 450, then turbo's 2000. Now what I will say is it looks significantly brighter than what they have on here, and that's because the Candela is just so high. So when it's on high mode, I honestly, if you weren't to tell me otherwise, I would assume it was 1000 lumens, because that's about how bright it looks, just because the Candela is so intense. And if you, again, use a Surefire light that has really good Candela, but like my Surefire Vampire, it actually outperforms some of my other 1000 lumen lights just because the Candela is so good. It's only like 350 lumens, so the lumens are kind of misleading on here. So the runtime is pretty much how long it will run if you start off in that mode and then just leave it on, because it will turn itself down slowly over time as it runs out of power, as it overheats, or whatever it does internally. So I did test it on turbo mode, and I just turned it on turbo and left it. So I stopped the test at 2 hours and 17 minutes, because at that point it was on low, and I don't really consider that usable anymore. It would not turn for medium. So once it turned to low, and now actually, hey, let me just read you the results. So I started on turbo. It went for about 2.5 minutes on turbo before it dropped down to, you know, the 450, 500 lumens. I don't know if that's a heat thing or if that's just that's how long it runs before it can't do turbo anymore. But I turned it off for about 30 seconds and tried to cool it off just to see if that's what it was. Turned it back on turbo again, and it stayed on turbo for about another minute before it went down to 500 or 450 again. So I don't know if it was heat. I don't know if it's just that's how much juice it's got, but it stayed on for another minute after being on for the 2.5 minutes. And I'll show you what they have on their runtime here in a second to compare it. It did get hot, but it was slightly uncomfortable to the hand, but it wasn't something you couldn't hold on to. Like, I wasn't wearing gloves or anything, and I could hold on to it just fine. It wasn't a big deal. It was warm. It was hot, but it wasn't uncomfortable hot. It stayed for about 2 hours in the 450 high mode before it went down to 150 to medium, and then it wouldn't turn on the high or turbo mode anymore at that point. It didn't have enough power. And then at 2 hours and 15 minute mark, it went down to the low mode, which is 30 lumens. So you got about 2 hours and 15 minutes of total runtime, in my opinion, and usable, 150 lumens or higher. So that's not bad. I mean, considering how much output this thing has, that's, to me, is acceptable. Now, if you start it in high instead of turbo, you get significantly more time of that. And it also took 3.5 hours to charge. I did write that. But there's the size, so you can kind of know if you're looking for a pouch or something that'll work with it. The working temperature is good. It works down to negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm American, so we're going to read Fahrenheit. Negative 22 to 122. So here is their discharge curve, and I like that they show this. And there's not a whole lot of companies that will show you this information, so that's one of the things I really appreciate about Cyansky is they show you all this data. So that you can see, as you start off on the turbo, it runs, and that's about what I had was 2 hours. So I would say all of these, based on that being accurate, I would say all these are probably accurate as well. I'm not going to test each and every one of these. I don't have enough time to test a 400-hour runtime. That's ridiculous. All right, so I've kind of already told you my final thoughts and kind of use for this, but in case you can't tell, I absolutely love this light. If you're a cop, if you work in security, if you just want a really, really good light, like say you live out in the country or even in town and you hear something outside, your dog's barking, you're not sure what it is, you're going to want this light, because I've grabbed a whole bunch of other lights and I can see in my backyard. My backyard's only about maybe 50 yards long at its widest point. And something like an HLX or any 1,000 lumen light is going to be enough to light up the backyard, but you can't really see details. And like the wood line that's about 50 yards back, again, you can't really see into the wood line. But with something like this, you can just see all the way through the woods as far as your eye can actually see, as long as there's not trees in the way. And that's one thing that this has going for it that others don't. And that's a big complaint I have with a lot of other lights, is they have tons of lumens. Like Olight, again, not to harp on you, I like the idea of what Olight tries to do. I just think their designs are lacking, and their quality control. But anyways, so the Candela on this and the purpose for it, it's to illuminate what you're actually trying to see. You don't need to see 180 degrees in all directions if you're trying to look at something there. Like, oh, there's something moving there, I want to see whatever that is. I don't need to see everything off in this direction. Now there's times where you might want that, but most of the time, if you're going to be using a light like this, or if you're law enforcement or security or anything along those lines, you're going to want something that actually illuminates what you're looking at. And this still does have a really good flood pattern. It's actually on par with my Olight Warrior Mini 2. So it has plenty of flood, the kind of situational awareness kind of thing. But that Candela really punches through, one, photonic barriers. Two, Rhett was telling me that he loves his because it'll allow him to see through tinted windows on vehicles. So whenever he does traffic stops and stuff, he can actually just, click it on, and he can see straight through tint. No matter how much tint you got on there, it punches through. So that's one of the things I really like about this as well. And it's good at just punching through things that most flashlights kind of, just bounce off or give you splashback. This actually penetrates. One of the other things too that I noticed, I don't know if it's in the video footage or not, but one of the days when I was testing it, it was actually, it wasn't foggy, but it was like misty. It had just rained, or it was trying to rain. And there's kind of like haze in the air. And my other flashlight just kind of illuminated the air itself because there's mist all over the place. So it's, bouncing off all that water in the air. Versus this just cut through it like butter, and I could still see 300 yards in those conditions. Now you could see the beam all the way out there because it kind of looked like a giant lightsaber, but my other flashlights at best gave me about 25 yards to maybe 50 for my really like the HLX. The Warrior Mini 2 barely went about 25 yards because again there's just so much flood, and that was one of the other problems I have with a lot of weapons lights in general. Is they're good at illuminating wide areas, but they're just not great at illuminating what you actually want to look at. And one of the things that people talk about is the handheld light is for searching. Your weapon light isn't really for searching. So, and when you're searching, you really want to be able to focus and see what you're actually trying to look for. So again, you can buy this. You don't have to buy this. It's completely up to you. But I think, at least out of all the lights I've seen on the market, other than some of the higher end ones, like you're looking at like mod light stuff like that, which $300-400 for some of those lights. I'm not sure if they make a handheld. They might, but to get this kind of performance, you normally have to spend about $400. And this thing, I believe, it was on sale a while back for about $60 or $70. I want to say it's somewhere around $90 normally, which in my opinion is an absolute steal, because I don't know of anything out there, including Streamlight, Surefire, anybody who makes something that's on par with this. There are, I hate to say this, but I don't know of any negatives. It does have little glass breaking things on here, which may or may not work. I have no idea. I'm not going to go shatter my truck window for y'all, but I don't really have any negatives. I mean, one of the negatives maybe is the button itself. It doesn't feel cheesy. It does rotate. You can kind of spin it a little bit. So I don't know, maybe that's a bad thing, but I haven't had any problems using it, and Rhett's been using the version 1 for almost a year. He hasn't had a single problem out of it. He absolutely loves that thing. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them down below. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. That helps. YouTube doesn't like this kind of content for, whatever reason, politics and whatnot. So whenever you like and comment, that does help the algorithm and people find us. So my final thought that I'll say, at least when it comes to singing this thing's praises, is once you use this light, you're going to be so spoiled, you're not going to want to use your other lights. I have used my other lights when I go camping, at work, just, you know, on the range, different stuff like that. And I've used them in different situations, and I always thought I love like the Streamlight, the rail mount, you know, it's 1,000 lumens. I thought I liked that Warrior Mini 2 just when it came to just like output, I guess I should say, you know, around the house light. I use it a lot whenever I go underneath the house to work on stuff, and it's really bright. But whenever we go on walks, or whenever I go out to like the bike trail or outdoors at night, this thing just absolutely blows every other light out of the water. I'll never go back to using any of those other lights. Like, and anything that doesn't perform as well as this, to me, isn't worth the money anymore, because I got spoiled by this thing. So just know that if you get this, you are going to love it so much you're not going to want to use your other lights, and you're not going to be impressed by your other lights, and what used to impress you will no longer impress you. So just know that. Anyways, hopefully you appreciate all this, and have a good one.